Thank you, Sophie. Hello, I'm Jennifer Jones with the headlines in Wales. The First Minister says the UK government admits Wales railways have been underfunded and hints at significant investment in future. But tonight it's not clear how much.
Significant amount of cash.
Well, we're hoping so, but we're not there yet. We haven't got to the numbers.
Okay.
But I can't tell you what a massive step forward this is.
Let me just
For the first time, they're recognising you've been hard done by.
It follows a long-standing row over whether Wales is missing out on its share of funding from the HS2 project in England. Also in the programme, the number of prescriptions for antidepressants trebles in Wales in 20 years. We'll explore the rise. Outdoor residential centres warn children from low-income backgrounds could miss out on school trips if a tourism tax is introduced here.
Closed for over a month, Holyhead Port will see ferries setting off once again tomorrow.
Noswaith, good evening. The First Minister has welcomed an admission by the UK government that Wales has suffered from low levels of spending when it comes to improving our railways. It follows a long-standing row over the lack of extra funding for Wales from the HS2 rail project. No new money has been announced yet, but Eluned Morgan says talks are taking place and she's hoping for what she describes as significant investment, as our political editor Gareth Lewis reports.
High speed and highly controversial. The argument over rail funding and whether Wales is missing out on its share of funding for HS2 rail in England is not slowing down. It's £350 million according to Labour, a lot more according to opposition parties. At the moment, Wales gets no extra cash, even though all the track is over the border, because it's classified as an England and Wales project.
Hi, are you waiting for us?
On the Radio Wales phone-in this afternoon, the First Minister said that underfunding was now being recognised by the UK government.
For the first time, the UK government has recognised that we have been underfunded. That's the first time they've actually admitted.
This is breaking news, right?
This is breaking news.
Okay.
It's a letter we've had from Heidi Alexander, who is the Transport Secretary, saying, OK, we get it. Something's not right here. And now there is a discussion now about what we're going to do about that.
The FM was asked whether Wales would now get its share of HS2 funding. Her answer suggested not, but money to address historic underfunding could be on the way. But we're not sure still exactly how much.
I'm expecting... I'm hoping it's going to be significant.
Significant amount of cash.
Well, we're hoping so, but we're not there yet. We haven't got to the numbers.
Okay.
But I can't tell you what a massive step forward this is.
Let me
For
just
the first time, they're recognising you've been hard done by.
Underfunding was also acknowledged later in the day by the Secretary of State for Wales, appearing in front of the Welsh Affairs Committee at Westminster.
It's not good enough, and that is a direct consequence, I'm afraid, of the last 14 years of underfunding by prior governments. And that is why I am determined to change that. I can't change the past, but I hope we can change the future.
So what is the plan? UK and Welsh ministers would like to build new stations along the South Wales main line between Cardiff and Newport and improve the Wrexham to Liverpool line in North Wales. Both governments need Rachel Reeves on board. And remember, this is a plan, not a concrete commitment. The green light has to be given by the Chancellor, who's conducting a spending review. There's cross-party support in the Senedd for HS2 to be reclassified and for Wales to get a fair funding share. More than £1 billion, say the Conservatives. £4 billion plus, say Plaid Cymru. They're not impressed by what they've heard.
What we're having are sort of vague promises from the UK government that there may be a little bit of investment available if the spending review in the spring allows that. Now, if that, for the First Minister, is some sort of cast-iron guarantee, then God help, I don't think she lives on the same planet as the most of us.
We believe that about £33 billion has been spent on it so far. We should have had at least £1.6 billion out of that. And we know the Wales government have said that they're content with £360 million. Well, why is that?
Transport actually ranks fairly low on issue trackers conducted by the polling companies. But in Wales, rail has taken on a symbolic as well as a very political status.
And Gareth is here now. So any clearer on this tonight?
Look, Jen, there's loads of political risk in this. It might not happen. We don't know how much money, and this would be the plan, direct UK government investment. So it's in the hands of Rachel Reeves. On HS2, we've heard the First Minister say previously, she's spoken so much to Keir Starmer about getting that funding that he's, quote, sick of hearing about it. Is that the end of that push, or will it continue? A suggestion that is the end. A political risk too, because after all that lobbying, whatever the cash is for, and the promise of two Labour governments working together on this particular issue, will the First Minister end up with something that doesn't impress, is deemed perhaps to be a failure, or perhaps ends up with nothing? Which brings us then to voters. Whatever happens, will they be on board? Look, this is about rail funding, yes, but the issue has always been about fairness or perceived fairness. It's become almost totemic. So with whatever happens, will voters end up thinking that the FM perhaps should have got more?
OK, Gareth, well, thank you very much. Well, also joining us is our Westminster correspondent, Shelley Phelps. And Shelley, the wider context to all this is there's a spending review going on, and the Chancellor, she's looking to find savings.
That's right, Jen. We know this line-by-line review of every pound of government spending is being conducted at the moment. That's due to be finalised in June. As part of that, government departments are being asked to make savings and efficiencies in their budget. So the Welsh Secretary is one of a number of ministers drawing up a list of spending priorities, haggling it out for cash, with the ultimate decisions being made by the Chancellor. Now, when pushed for specifics around timelines and funding today, Jo Stevens told MPs she couldn't preempt what the spending review would find. She said that what she had set out today was a shopping list, to which the committee chair, Labour's Ruth Jones, replied that MPs would have to wait for the results of, Cabinet to fight this out. And something else to bear in mind, the recent market turbulence we've been covering, rising costs in government borrowing, a fall in the value of the pound, meaning the government could find itself with less headrooms to meet the fiscal rules that it's set itself. Now, that could mean that the Chancellor finds herself having to make even more difficult decisions on public spending.
OK, Shelley, thank you. That's our Westminster correspondent, Shelley Phelps there. Police have appealed for an unidentified cyclist involved in a collision with a dog walker in the Splot area of Cardiff last month to contact them. Yesterday, South Wales Police said the cyclist had fled the scene on Moorland Road, but have now confirmed he stopped at the time of the incident and returned later to ask how the woman involved was doing. Well, the woman, who was 56, died on Monday, 5 weeks after the collision. A tribunal panel has banned a science teacher from the classroom after she drank half a bottle of wine during a lunch break before driving back to work to continue teaching. Rhian Williams taught chemistry at Ysgol Gyfun Gymraeg Bro Myrddin in Carmarthenshire. An Education Workforce Council fitness to practice hearing was told Ms Williams was reported by colleagues for behaviour that was out of character after drinking the wine. In a statement, she apologised and said she was deeply ashamed. Latest figures show the use of antidepressants in Wales has more than trebled over 20 years. More than 7 million prescriptions were given in 2022 to 23. That's compared with 2.1 million 20 years earlier. Well, one charity says urgent action is needed to address the root cause of mental ill health. Our social affairs correspondent, India Pollock, reports.
22-year-old Chloe Hayden from Cardiff said her life changed after a head-on car crash nearly 4 years ago. Her and her partner Sam, who was driving at the time, recovered from the physical injuries, but Chloe was left suffering with several panic attacks a day, an experience that she says was exhausting.
So for me, my chest, it really, really tightens. I feel like I can't breathe. My heart rate just skyrockets, and because of this I have this feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm going to die, I'm going to have a heart attack, this is what this is it. It's also coming to an acceptance as well, right, yeah, this is my time.
Her doctor prescribed her antidepressants, and Chloe says they've been a big help.
It's been the best thing that I've ever done for myself, from having multiple panic attacks a day to not having any in nearly 4 years. It's so freeing to not have that constant awareness of when am I going to next have a panic attack.
Antidepressant use has more than trebled over the last 20 years in Wales. 2.1 million prescriptions were given out in 2002 to 2003, compared with more than 7 million in the year 2022 to 2023. That rise in prescriptions has led to calls for better access to other therapies, which could help address the root causes of mental ill health.
Ideally, we could do with having instant access to talking therapies. But unfortunately, the wait for some of these therapies is months, and patients, of course, want some help immediately. And that's the reason we tend to start antidepressant therapy.
One mental health charity says that while it's positive that more people are coming forward for help if they're struggling, more needs to be done to make sure people get the right help at the right time.
We're seeing increased complexity as well in what people are seeking support for. So the pressure is very real on the front line. We need to think about how we intervene and support people at an earlier point so they don't become more unwell, but where they do need that help and support, that is available quickly.
Chloe now speaks publicly about mental health to help others. The Welsh Government says it's committed to improving access to mental health services, that there's an urgent 24/7 mental health phone line and online services available. They added that their new mental health and wellbeing strategy will be published in the spring.
And if you're affected by any of the issues raised in India's report, there are details of organisations offering information and support on the BBC's Action Line website. Now, hopes of an interest rate cut next month have been boosted by the latest inflation figures. In the 12 months to December, prices rose by an average of 2.5%. That means something that would have cost you £100 a year ago would cost £102.50 now. It's a slight and unexpected drop on the November figure. Well, our money editor, Felicity Evans, is with me. And Felicity, this could be good news for borrowers, couldn't it?
Potentially, Jen, yes. I mean, the Bank of England target for inflation is 2%, and obviously 2.5% is still above that. And there have been concerns about lingering inflationary pressures within the economy, which would mean interest rates have to stay higher for longer, which, as we know, makes borrowing, including mortgages, more expensive, but is good for savers because they get a better return on their money in the bank. But if we look beneath the headline figure for a second, because the headline figure is just a very tiny drop month on month. It's 0.1% from November to December. If we look at something called services inflation, and that measures costs of things like haircuts, hotel stays, meals out, that sort of thing. And it's a measure which the Bank of England regards as key for really understanding what's going on in the economy. That saw a really sharp fall from 5% in November to 4.4% in December. And that's one of the reasons that market analysts think that the Bank of England might decide to cut interest rates in February. But there are no guarantees, of course. A lot could happen between now and then.
And Fliss, what does it mean for UK government borrowing costs, which had increased a lot over the previous week?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, a lot of countries have seen their borrowing costs increase over that time. The United States, a lot of European countries as well, largely driven, actually, by concerns about inflationary pressures in the US economy and what incoming President Trump's policies might mean for that. But it's also true that the UK has had some extra heat, if you like, and that's because of concerns around additional borrowing that the Chancellor announced in October's budget and concerns about a lack of growth in the economy and that sort of thing. Now, today's inflation figures have seen some relief on that. Borrowing costs have fallen back for the UK, and the Chancellor will be very relieved about that because obviously if borrowing becomes more expensive for the government, they have to find a way to pay for that, either with spending cuts or tax increases. However, they might not be out of the woods yet because there are concerns that inflationary pressures might return later in the year.
OK, Fliss, thank you. Felicity Evans there. This is Wales Today, still to come in the programme. It's been shut for weeks. We're in Holyhead as the port prepares to reopen after damage caused by Storm Dara forced it to close.
And much of Wales turned out sunny and mild today, turning cold tonight with some frost, mist and fog patches. More sunshine tomorrow, but not everywhere. I'll have the latest forecast.
Children from low-income backgrounds could miss out on trips in Wales if a tourism tax is introduced. That's the warning from some residential outdoor centres and scout leaders here. They're calling for exemptions to the proposed levy, which could see most visitors in Wales paying a nightly fee from 2027. Well, the Welsh Government says its proposed legislation would keep rates low, as Brendan Williams reports.
It's often one of the most memorable weeks of their school lives. For 50 years, Nunnery Wood School in Worcester has brought children for week-long adventures in Gwynedd. But there are fears a tourism tax might exclude some pupils.
It's going to hit those on the lowest incomes more than others, disproportionately. And they are going to think twice, can we really afford to send our students here?
If legislation is passed, councils could charge a nightly fee of £1.25 per person for hotels or self-catering stays and 75p for hostels and campsites. One residential centre says many children visiting are from low-income backgrounds and a few pounds extra could make all the difference.
Our biggest fear is pupil numbers being down and not coming because of this increase in price and therefore missing out on these essential educational learning that we offer.
Like the outdoor education sector, scout leaders in Wales are calling for exemptions from the proposed tax. Others are completely against it.
It's not a good time. The timing's not good. It's also, we're very concerned about the burden on low-income families and smaller businesses.
Some believe it could raise money to improve services in tourism hotspots.
The introduction of something like a tourist tax is long overdue. Many of our coastal and rural areas have been overwhelmed by numbers of tourists, particularly in recent years since the COVID pandemic. And we have to realise that does have an impact on the local area, and we need the funding to mitigate those impacts, but also obviously to improve the facilities for visitors.
The Welsh Government says the low rates are fair with no need for exemptions, but that won't wash away fears that any rising costs could stop some enjoying scenes like this.
Now, it's 5 years since the minimum price of 50p for a unit of alcohol was enforced in pubs, shops and supermarkets here. Minimum pricing was brought in to try to combat the sale of cheap alcohol and binge drinking. But researchers have discovered the price increase has led some heavy drinkers to move away from strong, cheap lagers and ciders to wines and spirits. Well, our reporter Colette Hume is here. Now, the idea behind the minimum pricing was to try to cut people's drinking. Now, this suggests perhaps it hasn't.
Certainly some of the results from the research are going to be a cause of concern for the Welsh Government. Now, they did have a very small sample of heavy drinkers, but what a lot of people in that group were saying is this, that they'd moved away from weak beer, which should become more expensive, and instead they were drinking spirits, vodkas in particular. Some of those that were spoken to by the researchers said that they were even prepared to shoplift or get involved in sex work to pay for their alcohol. Of course, alcoholism is an addiction. It is a disease. The reasons why the Welsh Government decided to go for this policy are pretty clear. Public Health Wales tell us that 1,500 people a year in Wales die because of alcohol. And then more than 200 diseases and conditions are linked to alcohol use and abuse. And at UHW, the major hospital in Wales, their casualty department, 70% of all admissions at weekends are alcohol related. Now, the Welsh Government have been asked for their response, and what they say, Jen, is that this is only one part of their whole policy. They are investing £67 million a year in a substance misuse agenda, including money ring-fenced for young people. They'll also need to think about, are they going to increase the minimum charge up to 65p?
OK, Colette, thank you very much. Well, it's been over a month now since we saw the port of Holyhead closed following damage caused by Storm Dara. But tomorrow, ferries will finally set sail from the port once again. One terminal will be back in action with the same number of ferry journeys between Anglesey and Ireland as there were before the closure on the 7th of December. Well, let's go now to Holyhead, to our reporter Carwyn Jones. And Carwyn, many people will be looking forward to seeing those ferries crossing the Irish Sea again tomorrow.
Yes, certainly, Jen. It's been over a month now since the port's closure on the 7th of December, following damage to port infrastructure caused by Storm Dara. Now, we've been speaking with many individuals, passengers, businesses and lorry drivers over the past month, many who have told us that they've been affected by the port's closure. But some good news for them by now is that there will be a partial reopening. One terminal will be open here in the Port of Holyhead from tomorrow onwards. Now, Irish Ferries and Stena Line will share one terminal and run a temporary timetable over the next month or so. The number of crossings will return to how they were before the port closed at the beginning of December, and they will offer 8 services in both directions. So I'm sure that this news will be welcomed by many people, many who have had to change their plans over the Christmas period.
Edwin, you mentioned the timetable there. Some boats are set to arrive this evening. When will we see the first ferry leave Holyhead?
Yes, well, tomorrow is the official date of the reopening of Terminal 5 here, but we are aware that one Irish Ferries ferry is scheduled to leave Dublin at around 7:45 tonight and should be arriving here in the Port of Holyhead before midnight. Then Stena Line have another ferry leaving Dublin at around 10 p.m. tonight and should be arriving here at 2 a.m. Now, many have been working together. Welsh, Irish and UK governments have set up a task force to secure the port's resilience for the future, and of course Anglesey County Council have been working together with many people who have been affected by the port's closure. We'll be here during the day tomorrow with the latest from Holyhead Port, so make sure that you're across BBC Wales Online Radio and of course here on Wales Today tomorrow evening. Jen.
Cadwyn, thank you very much. Yes, I'll be in Holyhead with all the latest tomorrow evening. So let's find out what the weather has in store for those first few sailings. We've had some beautiful sunshine today, Derek.
We certainly have, Jen, yes, and there is more sunshine in the forecast as well, more dry weather. Also some low cloud, mist and fog patches, something to bear in mind if you're travelling. Now, it's been a lovely day in Aberdare for a visit to the park. Lots of sunshine there for Susie, with a few wispy cirrus clouds. And beautiful in Blaenau Festiniog in Gwynedd, hardly a cloud in the sky. Perfect weather for a walk in the mountains. And it has felt mild this afternoon. In many places, temperatures rose to 12 Celsius in Bodolwyddan, and in the capital, that's 54 Fahrenheit, about 4 degrees above the January average. High pressure is in charge at the moment. That's the reason for the fine and settled weather we're having, and it may also be the reason for some travel problems, also some interference to your TV and radio signals. So tonight, much of the country will stay dry and clear, but not everywhere. Some mist and fog patches already forming in the south. These will become a little more widespread, the fog dense in places too. And colder than last night, there will be some frost, temperatures inland dropping as low as -2, -3 in places, but some coasts will stay above freezing, also above freezing in Bangor and on Anglesey. Now, tomorrow, high pressure remains in charge, centred on the near continent. That means more dry and settled weather, some sunshine, also some low cloud. So a cold start tomorrow then, with some frost, mist and fog patches slowly lifting. Sunshine for most of the country, but not everywhere. Southeastern counties will stay grey, with the mist and fog slowly lifting into low cloud. And temperatures a little lower than today, 6 to 10 Celsius. The wind light, but a bit breezy in the northwest and on some western coasts. Now, tomorrow night, cloud will become more extensive across the country, misty in places too, and not quite so cold tomorrow night, but there could still be a ground frost in parts of mid and northeast Wales. Looking ahead, mostly dry and settled on Friday and over the weekend, but a cold front will move towards Wales during the course of Sunday. Now, on Friday, there will be a lot of cloud around, but mostly dry, misty in places, bright in Cardiff and in Llandudno. Temperatures around the seasonal average. Mostly dry and settled, I think, over the weekend. Mist and fog patches, some sunshine in Prestatyn, and temperatures around 5 Celsius in Llandrindod, up to 9 Celsius in St David's. And next week does look drier than average, with temperatures around the seasonal average too. Jen.
Derek, thank you very much. Right, let's get a reminder of our top story before we go. The First Minister has welcomed an admission by the UK government that Wales has suffered from low levels of spending when it comes to improving our railways. It follows a long-standing row over the lack of extra funding for Wales from the HS2 rail project. No new money has been announced yet, but Eluned Morgan says she's hoping for what she describes as significant investment. And that's all from the Wales Today team for now. We'll have the headlines for you at 10:30 tonight, but until then, have a good evening. Bye-bye.